we're talking about District of Columbia courts in Texas. And let's get started. It's one of the fundamental maxims of the common law that ignorance of the law excuses no one. And de facto. De facto is illegitimate, but in effect, that's definition number 2. And that's Black's Law Dictionary, 8th edition. De jure. We'll talk about lawful de jure courts and where we can find them in the common law video. The de facto courts video does provide some information about common law courts. De jure is existing by right or according to law, and that's Black's Law Dictionary, 8th edition as well. All bankrupt corporate government courts in Canada, the United States, and any unidroit country, quite frankly, are United Nations courts under the Unidroit Treaty and have been for over 30 years. See the Unidroit video. All courts are de facto courts. There's no authority to delegate anything to the United Nations in the Constitution of the United States of America or the British North America Bill or any of these documents. This is the Constitution for the United States of America, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, and this is talking about the District of Columbia. And it says to exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district not exceeding 10 miles square as may by cession of particular states and the acceptance of Congress become the seat of government of the United States, and to exercise like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislature of the state, in which the same shall be for the erection of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings. Okay, so exclusive jurisdiction, exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever. That's plenary jurisdiction. That's a military dictatorship. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that, okay? D.C. enact the Uniform Commercial Code for the District of Columbia and other purposes, and that's found at 77 Stat 630, Public Law 88-243. And then under the Uniform Commercial Code, the United States is located in the District of Columbia. Okay, so therefore, that's Uniform UCC 9.307, paragraph H. So therefore, anytime they're talking about United States, they're talking about the District of Columbia. So a U.S. citizen is a citizen of the District of Columbia. Okay, and so this is the D.C. Code, Chapter 854, which was approved March 3rd, 1901 by the 56th Congress at 31 Stat 1189. And then if you go through there at 31 Stat 1432, it says that the legal estate shall be in necessitake use. Okay, in the 1700s, a trust was called a use, which is short for usufruct under Roman civil law. And so then a citizen of the United States is a civilly dead entity operating as a co-trustee and co-beneficiary of the public charitable trust, the constructive cestake trust of U.S. Inc. under the 14th Amendment, which upholds the debt of the USA and U.S. Inc. And that's found at the Congressional Record, June 13th, 1967, pages 15,641 through 646. And then Henry Bolins talks about, it says, every taxpayer is a cestake trust having sufficient interest in preventing abuse of the trust to be recognized in the field of this court's prerogative jurisdiction. So, again, a U.S. citizen is a citizen of the District of Columbia. It's a cestake trust, and that's what this D.C. code is talking about here. Whoever falsely and willfully represents himself to be a citizen of the United States shall be fined or imprisoned. Okay, that's Title 18, United States Code, Section 911. The term person, and in other codes, the term person shall be construed to mean and include an individual, trust, estate, partnership, association, company, or corporation. And so these are all fictitious entities, okay, because I'm under justum generis. They have to put the same kind of entities together. So an individual is just another fictitious entity, which means cestake trust. And then under Title 5, Section 552A2, the term individual means a citizen of the United States or alien lawfully admitted for permanent residence. Okay, so again, a citizen of the United States is a cestake trust. Remember, back here and back here. And so keep moving here. Chapter, again, this is the Act to establish a code for the D.C. And this is at 31 Stat 1189. It says, and be it further enacted that the interpretation and construction of said code, the following rules shall be observed, namely, third, the word person shall be held to apply to partnerships and corporations unless such construction would be unreasonable. And so, again, a person is a fictitious entity. Okay, and this is, again, we're moving on here. This is, again, the Code Act to establish a code of law for the District of Columbia, March 3rd, 1901. And in Section 2, it says the judicial power of the district shall continue at present to be vested in first inferior courts, namely justices of the peace and a police court. And second superior courts, namely the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court of the United States. And again, it talks about the police court. In Section 42, it says Constitution, there shall continue to be a police court in the district as at present. Okay, so it's talking about a police court. And in Section 44, it says that prosecutions in the police court shall be on information by proper prosecuting officer. Okay, if you watch the martial law, we're under martial law rule video. That's how they do it under martial law. It's all by information. There's no due process. There's no common law. It's admiralty. And we're going to see why. And this is actually taken from Fort Worth session laws. And this is the city of Fort Worth was provided with a charter by the act of the 30th legislature under the special laws of Texas. Special laws are not public laws. Special laws are private laws. Anyways, Chapter 7, an act to incorporate the city of Fort Worth, Tarrant County, Texas, to provide for its approval by the qualified electors of said city and to declare an emergency, which was approved February 26, 1907 at page 81, and creates a corporation court of the city of Fort Worth as section 136 on page 131, where it says, there is hereby created and established a court to be held in the city of Fort Worth, which shall be known as the Corporation Court of the City of Fort Worth, and shall have exclusive jurisdiction within the territorial limits of the city under the ordinances in said city. So again, it's for corporations. And this is the DC Code again. Section 2, it says, and be it further enacted that in the interpretation of construction of said code, the following rules shall be observed, namely, fourth, that the word executor, and as used, it shall include administrator and vice versa. And so if you think about it, why do you think they call the U.S. the administration? Okay, it's because they're dealing with Satanic trusts and U.S. citizens. It's all fictitious entities. It's all probate law. This is the same code, Code of Law for the District of Columbia at 31 Stat 1341. Conduct of prosecutions and so forth. Prosecutions for violations of all police or municipal ordinances or regulations, violation of all penal statutes in the nature of police or municipal regulations, where the maximum punishment is a fine only or imprisonment not exceeding 1 year, shall be conducted in the name of the District of Columbia, and all others shall be conducted in the name of the United States by the U.S. Attorney. Which, you know, if you think about it, anytime the U.S. Attorney, the United States, attacks anyone, really it's the D.C. It's D.C. that's doing it. Anyways, this is Section 1563 at 31 Stat 1422. It says what can be set off: mutual debts and claims under contract between parties to a common law action between one party and the testator or intestate of another. Okay, remember they're dealing, this is all probate law, okay, for dead things. Again, and they're talking set off. Okay, we're talking Federal Reserve notes. Okay, Federal Reserve notes, set it off. The old stats, even before the Civil War, they talked about set off. And so, anyways, this is Section 117, that in addition to the jurisdiction conferred in the preceding section, plenary jurisdiction is hereby given to said court holding the special term to hear and determine all questions on probate, actually, is what it should say. But anyways, on dead things, okay? Remember, that's the Satanic trust. Oh, on wills, all questions on wills, okay? Again, that's dead things. And so we're talking Satanic trust again, okay? So this is plenary jurisdiction. It's a military dictatorship. And this is, again, DC Code. 31 Stat 1211, it says citation. Upon filing of the petition of a probate, a citation will be issued. Okay, so again, and then it goes on at section 308. It says if the said collector shall neglect or refuse to deliver over property, the property and estate to the executor or administrator, the court may by citation and attachment. Okay, so again, they're talking citations, and they're talking about dead things. This is 31 section 45 at 31 1265 of the DC code. Citation to owners, the said court holding a district court of the United States. And then at section 1112 at 31 Sat 1365, it says marshal's fees, that for the service of any citation, summons, or capias. Okay, a capias. And these are all ecclesiastical courts that we're talking about here. An act to establish a code of law, again, and this is at section 1141 at 31 Stat 1265, talks about non-resident infants, okay, and it talks about citations, okay. It says without bond and without citation, or may cite such person, okay, and cite means citation. And this is I filed a lawsuit in Texas, and this is the version of a summons. And notice up at the top where the arrows are, the second arrow down is citation, is what it is. This is how they go and drag you into court, is a citation. And this one again, they're dealing with dead things and corporations, okay, state of Texas, all block capital letters. They spelt my name in all block capital letters. That's a dead thing. And so again, if you look at the arrows, and if you notice also, oh, here it is, close, and the court clerk is a dead thing. I mean, everything's in dead things. This is all U.S. citizens, okay? And again, if you look at the lower area, you notice they don't put it in a zip code, but they do. Again, it's all block capital letters. That's a dead thing. And this is a traffic citation. Okay, and this is Fort Worth too. And customer copy. Hey, you get to be their customer. And so, see, customer copy, traffic citation, and I actually gave him a Republic of Texas identification card. He, the hired thug didn't have any problem with that. And but they like to shove their zip code, their commercial zip codes down your throat. So he went and came up with one. And notice I didn't sign it. He actually just threw it at me. And then on the back of their citation, this is the back, it's an information insert. Remember, we're talking informations is an admiralty proceeding. It's under plenary jurisdiction. And then if you notice also, it talks about please wait 3 business days before appearing. Okay, so they want that contract in place. And so, and then the arrow at the bottom, it says fine information. Okay, so again, this is all admiralty jurisdiction. This is a U.S. Supreme Court case, National Mutual Insurance Company of the District of Columbia versus Tidewater Transfer Company, 1948. And it says, we therefore decline to overrule the opinion of Chief Justice Marshall. We hold that the District of Columbia is not a state within Article 3 of the Constitution. In other words, cases between citizens of the district and those of the states are not included in the catalog of controversies over which the Congress could give jurisdiction to the federal courts by virtue of Article 3. In other words, Congress has exclusive legislative jurisdiction over citizens of the Washington District of Columbia, and through their plenary power nationally covers those citizens, even when in one of the several states, as though the district expands for the purpose of regulating its citizens wherever they go throughout the states of the Union. And so I don't care where you are. If you're a U.S. citizen or stupid enough to think you are one, then you get the military dictatorship. And this is a warrant. This is a notice of warrant. I'm sorry, a notice of warrant, okay? Remember, the judge is a clerk, okay? So it's a void warrant. It's because they don't have the capacity. But notice it says State of Texas, okay, in all block capital letters. So this thing, it can't be a corporation, so it's got to be a guy, okay? And we're going to talk about that in a minute. And this Fort Worth Municipal Court, and notice it's a zip code. See the zip code? And then they criminally converted my name. See, we'll get in closer here. And so, again, it's all zip codes. See the zip code, 76102. Those are all federal. Fort Worth is that up at the top is a registered trademark. Municipal court, all block capital letters, Marshall Division. Hey, state of Texas. Okay, some guy, it can't be a corporation. And then at the bottom is City Marshal, okay? And then they got my name spelt in all block capital letters with a zip code, okay? And so there's created a fictional federal state of XXX with an estate. That's Swartz versus O'Hara Township School District, a Pennsylvania case. And they're citing a U.S. Supreme Court case, Howard versus Sinking Fund of Louisville. And then in the Texas tax code, it says, in this state means within the exterior limits of Texas and includes all territory within these limits ceded to or owned by the United States. And so include means to confine within, to hold, to contain as a shell of a nut, includes a kernel. A pearl is included in a shell. To comprise, to comprehend, to contain, okay? And there's several, there's Black's Law Dictionary, there's the American Dictionary of English Language. So a municipal court of record is presided over by one or more municipal judges, and the governing body shall by ordinance appoint its municipal judges. A municipal judge must be a resident of the state, a citizen of the United States, okay? So that's it's a bunch of thieves. Be a licensed attorney, a bar member. Watch my bar members video. I have 2 or more years of experience practicing law in this state, okay? So that means federal areas of Texas, and that's the government code. And this is another section in the government code. It talks about to qualify for an appointment as an associate judge under this. A person must be a resident and licensed to practice law in the state for at least 4 years. Okay, in other words, a U.S. citizen and in federal areas of Texas. And Texas Code of Criminal Procedure says a law enforcement agency. Each law enforcement, and the underlined part there, law enforcement agency in this state. And so law enforcement agencies, again, they're shoving their laws. It's a military, it's a plenary jurisdiction, okay? And this is the Texas Civil and Practice Code, the rule of decision in this state. And so, and then the Texas Rule of Civil Procedure, an allegation that a corporation is incorporated shall be taken as true unless denied by affidavit. So again, this is all military dictatorship. Texas Government Code, an assistant prosecuting attorney must be licensed to practice law in this state. The Office of Court Administration, Texas Judicial System shall develop and maintain a model uniform written jury summons in this state. Okay, so it's only in federal areas of Texas where they can summon a jury. That's why you got to be a U.S. citizen. The quickest way to get off a jury is to say, well, I'm not a U.S. citizen. Texas Government Code, as a board of law examiners acting under supervision of the Supreme Court shall determine the eligibility of candidates for examination for a license to practice law in this state. Okay, that's federal areas of Texas again. And now this is actually the Daniel Lee Schenck affidavit, and let's get in closer. This is, if you look at the top right-hand side, there's a barcode. That's the Liberty County Recorder's barcode, and it says that Daniel Lee Schenck is making this affidavit. He says, I've retrieved attached 2 pages of Dun & Bradstreet business background regarding the for-profit corporation status of the judiciary courts of the state of Texas, and it's Exhibit A, so let's go look at that. And so here it is. This is a first page. Let's get in closer. Look at that. Exhibit A, Judiciary Courts of the State of Texas, a subsidiary of Texas, State of Austin, and let's go look some more here. It says there a line of business, a state court system, and then in the box it says a business type, a corporation, for-profit corporation. And if you go, this is the second page, and it says the business was started by citizens, and then the operations, it says subsidiary of Texas State of, started in 1845, is a state court system which includes the Supreme Court, the Court of Criminal Appeals, the Court of Last Resort, 14 courts of appeals, 80 judges, district court with 386 judges, criminal district court with 10 judges, and county level court with 445 judges. And branches, the department maintains 14 courts of appeal, 375 district level courts, and 420 county level courts. And so these are all part of that for-profit corporation. And here is the bottom where it talks about Liberty County Recorder. There's a recording fee. They paid the recording fee, and there's a little affidavit by the Liberty County Recorder that says that it's a certified copy, I believe. Anyway, so courts of District of Columbia versus Texas. D.C. courts have a police court. Texas courts have a corporation court. They deal only with the person. The person is a fictitious entity. They issue a capias. Remember, we talked about it in both cases. They issue citations. They issue informations, and they have marshals. And D.C. courts accept only Federal Reserve notes. They're intended for internal government use only by U.S. citizens. See Bankster Thieves videos 1, 2, and 3. All the officers of these courts are U.S. citizens. They use a citation to initiate proceedings. They use informations. They use marshals. It's a plenary jurisdiction, and it's a federal jurisdiction with a zip code, and they deal only with the fictitious entities. When acting to enforce a statute and its subsequent amendments to the present date, the judge of a municipal court is acting as an administrative officer and not in a judicial capacity. Courts administrating or enforcing statutes do not act judicially, but merely ministerially, but merely act as an extension, as an agent for the involved agency, but only in a ministerial and not a discretionary capacity. And that's Thompson versus Smith, citing a U.S. Supreme Court case, Keller versus P.E. And so, and here's some more. Judges who become involved in enforcement of mere statutes, civil or criminal in nature, otherwise act as mere clerks of the involved agency. It's an accepted rule, not only in state courts, but federal courts as well, that when judges enforcing administrative law, they're described as mere extensions of the administrative agency for superior reviewing purposes. As a clerk, they're bought and paid for, in other words. When any state proceeds against a private individual in a judicial form, it's well settled. A state, county, municipality, etc. waives any immunity. When enforcing mere statutes, judges of courts do not act judicially and thus are not protected by qualified and limited immunity. Ministerial officers are incompetent to receive grants of judicial power from their legislature. Their acts in attempting to exercise such powers are necessarily nullities. Okay, so think back to that warrant. Okay, so that warrant is a nullity. And so if there's any peace officers listening, I guess it depends on whether you intend to be a peace officer or a law enforcement officer, because if you want to be a peace officer, then that warrant is void. It's a nullity. It doesn't exist. They don't have the capability of issuing a warrant because they weren't operating in a judicial capacity. They were clerks masquerading as judges, and so then if they do a so-called their arrest, that's an assault. Okay, so all you peace officers out there, if you think you're going to arrest me over that warrant, then that will be an assault. That will be kidnapping. That will be false imprisonment. And so, but that's their intent. That's these Fort Worth pigs intend to do. So that's obviously what they do, because I've been serving them with all sorts of stuff, and it's this stuff. And so, anyways, that's what they intend to do. Now, now, if you're going to be a law enforcement officer, you also have to understand that if you no one is bound to obey an unconstitutional law, and no courts are bound to enforce it. And an officer who acts in violation of the Constitution ceases to represent the government. See peace officers and law enforcement officers videos. So any law enforcement officers that think they're going to come and arrest me, then you're not representing the government. You don't have a shred of immunity, and you're going to be personally liable. So, and you're going to be an accomplice to these Fort Worth pigs. No corporation is standing to do anything to the living soul. So they have these corporation called State of Texas. So how does that happen? Okay. And so this is Rundle versus Delaware and Raritan Canal Company, a U.S. Supreme Court case, 1952. My opinion has long has been that the mayor and alderman of a city corporation, or the president directors of a bank, or the president directors of a railroad company, or of other similar corporations, are true parties that sue or are sued as trustees and representative of the constantly changing stockholders. A corporation, therefore, being not a natural person but a mere creature of the mind, is invisible and intangible, cannot be a citizen of a state or of the United States, and cannot fall within the terms or the power of the above mentioned article, and can therefore neither plead nor be impleaded in the courts of the United States. And so these hired thugs are using their Unidroit to assault me, and their judgment is going to come. Okay, they are going to get their judgment day, and you know, whether it's in this life or the next, but it's going to come. Texas, under military occupation, as has been since the Civil War, complain, tell them they have no authority, they have no immunity, and why set up our own common law courts? Where are we, the people? You know, the people that are watching this, you know, we're all responsible for this because we let it happen. International Tribunal of Crimes of Church and State with Kevin Annett is helping people set up common law courts, and I applaud them 100%. This is part of my Fire the Whores campaign. The motivation of these de facto so-called judges is not for justice. The motivation is for their commercial transaction. They intend to create business for their so-called court to justify their existence, to create work for the de facto buddies, to collect more royalties, to get promoted to the Court of Appeals or the Supreme Court. They create work for their buddies by making their decisions as cryptic as possible, forcing the issue to another hearing, ignoring the law, and thereby forcing an appeal. There's a YouTube video about a profile called Servant King. He explains how a court case is actually a satanic religious ceremony. Servant King explains how a court case is necromancy, which is witchcraft. It's bringing the dead to life. Everything done in these cases in these de facto courts is under Roman civil law. Roman civil law is a subset of canon law. Canon law comes from the Vatican, and the Vatican is satanic. See the churchianity videos. So do you want to place your future in the hands of a Vatican Jesuit United Nations whore who wants to sit on the bench and play stupid? Do you want to put your future of your wife and children in the hands of one of these judicial whores that have complete immunity no matter what? Because if you sue one of them, you have to get one of their whore buddies to do it. Sure, some of them want to really do justice, but are you going to take the chance that you got a good one? Do you want to place your future in the hands of a whore that is bought and paid for by these crown pigs and their Vatican handlers? And yes, it is the crown, okay? The crown, United States, is owned and operated by the Vatican, or the crown, whichever way you want to call it. The crown's owned and operated by the Vatican. Do you want to place yourself in the hands of a judicial whore who's intent on converting you into a ward of the court, which is an imbecile? There's technical remote viewers. The U.S. Army was a U.S. Army program for over 20 years in the 70s, and I think it was the 80s and 90s and part of the 70s. And they canceled the program when the Soviet Union broke up. Technical remote viewers went into private business. That's how we knew what was going on in the Soviet Union most of the time, because they were remote viewing it. You can remote view any point in space and time. What they do is put you they teach you how to read your feelings. And it's basically psychic abilities. We all have them. And they just teach you how to use them. And there's supposed to be, according to these technical remote viewers, a giant library on the fabric of space-time in which everything that is ever done is recorded. And your viewing of this video is now permanently recorded on the fabric of space-time. And this is my way of making sure that I'm blameless before God on Judgment Day for these criminals and the brain-dead sheeple that are out there. And so for all those people that are watching this video now, you're going to be held responsible too. I'll bet that made your day. Quite frankly, I hope that you do things so that you are blameless as well, and that's why I'm telling you this, because we all need to do things to make sure that we're blameless for the actions of these criminals that are carrying on these days. And so some other videos that you might want to watch are to get some foundational understanding of some of the things talked about in this video is de facto courts, bankrupt corporate so-called governments, bankster thieves 1, 2, and 3, bar members 1 and 2, we're under martial law rule, quasi-contracts and Roman civil law, peace officers and law enforcement officers. Some upcoming events. Common law, void judgments, color of law, U.S. or actually D.C. border pigs, de jure government, the ultimate solution, how to do a habeas corpus, fire the United Nations clerks masquerading as judges in Texas. Actually, this is the equivalent of that, so that's probably, that's this one. U.S. government is the District of Columbia, churchianity, and the Vatican. When injustice becomes law, then resistance becomes duty. Copies of these documents can be found on my private group at Yahoo called Administrating-Your-Public-Servants. I've also got a group with the same name at Google. If you have YouTube videos, I have YouTube videos that are videos of private information shares that show that these and other court citations that are available for donation. The YouTube videos are some of them, but there's a lot more. Donations to support this work are appreciated, and the preferred method is gold or silver coin, but I do accept negotiable instruments, banknotes, money orders, PayPal, checks, etc. as an extremely less desirable alternative. Send an email for particulars. Send me an email for other copies of documents to Engineer Wynn. I appreciate you taking the time to watch the video. I hope you got something out of it, and I hope that we can all stand blameless on Judgment Day when these criminals are brought to justice. And I hope you have a real nice day.